Welcome to the Stewards Review. I'm so pleased to be joined by Cody Watkins, Jockey Club Steward, and Victor Escobar, the New York Racing Association Steward. And we've got two incidents, one that did end in a disqualification and one that didn't, but definitely very interested to get your guys' take on how you came about those decisions. And we're going to start race 2 on October 24th, Whammo with Katie Davis. Slips up the inside of the 6 Pantherian with Joel Rosario. And they get into a pretty spirited stretch duel here, and there was some contact, particularly late.
Sure, here you're going to see a very sustained duel between the 5 and the 6 horses all the way up the straight. They all maintain their line until in the closing stages of the race, where the 5 horse just drifts slightly right and takes Mr. Rosario on the 6 off his line, and he takes him 2 or 3 horses whips off his line, and that's why we called the NYRA in the first place, Rich.
You know, they came together right there, about a 16th out, maybe a little bit before the 16th pole. But it's here where things really kind of change. And the inside horse comes out under a left-handed crop by Katie Davis. And it was, I thought, 3 different times where they either brushed or actually bumped, and the margin of victory was ahead. That has to play into the deciding factor.
Yeah, always does, Rich, and very similar to an incident that we had last week that also resulted in a disqualification that we talked about on the last show. Now, in the spirit of full disclosure, I was out this previous weekend. I wasn't in the stand, but after talking to the NYRA substitute steward and reviewing the film, it's a pretty straightforward case here. The 5 horse was drifting out throughout, made contact multiple times with the other horse, knocking him off his intended running line.
I mean, to me, it was very clear-cut. I don't think that anybody could have an issue with that disqualification because the horse did come out, did deviate from the line, like you're saying. And one thing about Joel Rosario, who is on the outside runner, he holds a tight line, but he doesn't deviate from it. And I think that speaks to his experience and talent.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of it, Rich. And that's what we want to see at the end of the day. Horse racing, it's a non-contact sport. Right. Now, that's not to say that some races are run a little aggressive. There is some minor inconsequential bumping now and then, and that's not to say that we're not taking note of it, but it may not warrant a disqualification. But again, as we discuss every week on the show about what the rules entail, first, it clearly defines what is a foul. And that's the intimidation or interfering with another horse's forward progress. And then we have to be satisfied that the foul altered the outcome of the race. And when you're dealing with marges like noses or short heads, then you certainly have that conversation.
Now, it seems to me, as observing, that you guys have definitely gotten a little bit stricter, a little bit tighter. Is that something that you discuss with the riders? Like, hey, guys, herding has gone on here for a long time, and at times I felt like it's been out of hand, where you guys have been really kind of holding them to a tighter standard, if you will. Is that something you discuss with the riders?
Yeah, so anytime, I've been with NYRA now for coming up on 2 years in February. Cody's relatively new to the stewarding team. So anytime coming in, we do our due diligence. We have to review this rule book because this is different from the rules that I was under in my previous district, right? And so I have to take into consideration what the rules here read and how I'm going to interpret that. And then once you put it into practice, you're able to set an expectation. And I think once between horses getting disqualified, the film review that we have with the riders thereafter to determine was this a careless riding infraction or not, you're setting that expectation, and then they go back with that understanding. And the same with us doing the show with the betting public. Agree with us or not, at least at the bare minimum, we hope that we're setting the expectation. This is what we're looking for when we're adjudicating races, and this is how we're going to adjudicate them.
And you've got riders here that should be good enough to uphold that standard, no doubt. Now, a race that didn't end in a disqualification, race 5 on October 25th, calling an audible, will win it. Now, Katie Davis, who ironically enough was involved in the disqualification, she's between horses in the blue. And Louis Rivera, is going to come over here to kind of engage the inside horse. And maybe she was in slightly tight for half a stride, but it seemed like an unwarranted claim of foul.
Richie, you summed it up perfectly there, really. Mr. Rivera was coming out on the outside, and he was always improving his position past Miss Davis at the time of the incident. And ultimately, we felt with Miss Davis's claim of foul, we felt that she was always going to finish in her third place position, and ultimately that's why we left the result as was.
Right. He did cut it a little bit fine, I will say, but you know what the intention was. He wants to keep his horse in the battle, keep him gained. Sometimes they're outside, they get a little bit lonely. Is that something, though, even though it didn't warrant the disqualification, that you will discuss with a young rider after an incident like this?
Yes. We still haven't managed to speak to Mr. Rivera yet because he hasn't been with us since that day, but the conversation will be had tomorrow, hopefully, if we race.
Right, and just, hey, keep it clean.
Yeah.
You cut it a little bit fine there. Be a little bit more mindful.
Yeah, it's the question with no answer. What is clear, right? You say when the way is clear, what is clear? Here he's clear enough, but he could have certainly been in a position where he wasn't clear and put horse and rider in a bad situation, and that's what we want to avoid.
Absolutely. I think you guys have the toughest, most thankless job on the racetrack that I think has also been made a little bit more difficult because it states in the rules in New York that it has to cost a horse a placing to warrant a disqualification, where years ago, a foul was a foul. You could bump someone leaving the gate, and they finished last, and you can get disqualified years ago.
Yeah, that's a big shift from those rules, which, in theory, it makes it easier, but you probably had some unjustified disqualifications that would certainly make you scratch your head at the end of the day and say, what are we doing here? But,
Sure.
At least this way, there's a little bit more of a standard that is set and a little bit more of an expectation, again, that you're able to set. This is what's going to get you disqualified.
Well, I think you guys are doing a terrific job, and I can't thank you enough for joining us and allowing the public into the conversations or the thought process behind what warrants a disqualification or not. Thank you, gentlemen, and please, you can check this out on NYRA.com and hopefully catch us also on America's Day at the Races.
Thank you.
Thank you.